Okay.
Okay.
All right. So here we are in your new room at
Yes.
Cordia. Does it feel cozy?
Yes.
It's a little smaller. It's nice though.
Very comfortable and very adequate.
Adequate's good. Okay. So since we last talked, it's been about 2 months,
Yeah, it's been a while.
and a lot's happened. We had a family. I guess you could call it a vacation, right?
What else would you call it? It's
It was
kind
vacation.
of a family.
Get together.
I'm thinking it's like occasionally chaos. It was family chaos, but it
Yeah.
was worth every second of it.
Yeah, it's just for us. We didn't really go that far. You know, we drove an hour, but it was a nice house on the beach.
Mm-hmm.
Emily came to visit with Ellie. Lex showed up for
Overnight, wasn't it?
2 nights.
Yeah.
Anything you want to say about that trip?
I know this will be the last family vacation that we'll be able to take like this. And I'm so grateful that we were able to do it. It means more to me than I can say. Watching the kids, getting together with all of you was absolutely spectacular. Every minute of it was a treasure. I have in my possession that piece of driftwood that one of you found. And I have the pattern for what I'm going to paint on it.
I think Emily found that.
And it is actually going to be the beach that we were on, and those beautiful trees were at the side. And it'll be like at sunrise when you could see the water, and then you saw those black trees in silhouette. So that's what I'm planning to do. I have the sketches. I just have to work out the colors, and then I only have watercolor, so I'm going to have to get my hands on some acrylics from the art studio and do that.
Okay.
But that's my first plan that I plan to do. Since I've been here, I've had an opportunity to participate in some of their activities. They have a Qigong class, which is somewhat similar to chair yoga.
That you would teach.
Well, one day the leader wasn't there, so I got to do the class. But the thing I'm interested in now is I'm going to take over an art class once a month for the woman who does it. And she's a very lovely woman, but she has absolutely no idea. I think they just grabbed her and said, "Here, you're going to do this." So we have some plans for what we're going to do. We're going to make a 4-dimensional Christmas tree and decorate it with glue spots and glitter and stuff like that. We're going to do a cornucopia that people can hang on their doors, and a couple of other things that I have in mind. I haven't worked out the patterns yet, but
Where'd you get the idea for these?
you know, my job when I was at school was making all these craft things, and I had to make them for people who had limited abilities.
Yeah.
And in this place, I'll be working with people who have assorted limited abilities also. So it's kind of a natural.
Yeah. Present company included.
Yeah, present company at the top of the list.
I think I see one of the pumpkins there, right?
Yeah.
Do you want to show that just for
If you want to grab it, sure.
Yeah, I get it.
I'm working on a 4-dimensional Christmas tree that will stand on its own. I don't think I have the model for it finished yet.
So this is the pumpkin that you...
Yeah, this is the pumpkin we made. We started with just a simple pumpkin, and then we elevated it to jack-o'-lantern in honor of the season.
And do a tree like in a similar way.
Yeah.
Was this a drawing you did?
Yeah. Oh. It's not meant to be anybody. It was just a drawing I did that I kind of worked on. I do try to do a few things that when I get an idea, I try to sit down and work it out, and then either paint it or throw it away. It depends how it worked out. But it's good. It's good therapy for me. I'm happy to do it. I think it helps keep my fingers a little bit nimble because they're getting a little bit icky. So I know that this was absolutely the right choice for me. There's no question about it in my mind.
Moving into Cordio?
Absolutely. And I know that the people here have been absolutely wonderful. I'm kind of in this not quite independent living stage. I don't remember what they call it. But I'm still doing many things on my own. The laundry room is like 20 yards from here, so I do my own laundry. I go down for dinner, lunch every day. I have stuff here for breakfast, usually bagels and a lot of fruit and stuff like that. I get a decent lunch, bring half of it back so I don't have to go down for dinner.
Yeah.
I've gotten into this routine. I'm into all the routines now, and it's really quite comfortable. My only regret, and it's not a regret, and it's not necessarily for Cordio, it's that I'm not able to get around to get to your house or to get to Claire's house or stuff like that. And so I don't see as much of you as I would like, but if it were up to me, I would see you each every day. So, and I realize that's ridiculous. It's not even possible. But I so treasure the moments that I have with your families. And I so treasure this because it will hopefully remind all my grandchildren that I was a real life person and that sometimes I was funny and that sometimes I was a little nuts, but hey, who isn't? And I look back on my life, and from the very second that they put Emily in my arms, I was an old mom at that time and hadn't ever expected to have a child. And she was so tiny. She was so tiny. She was just over 5 pounds. And they put her in my arms and she just barely fit. So she was so small I could hold her right here and she covered my whole arm.
Yeah.
And I looked at her and I thought, oh my God, look at this beautiful child. And then immediately thought, I have no idea how to do this. Not a clue. So she taught me a great deal about what to do. And then what I learned when Claire came along was that the stuff that worked for Emily wasn't going to work for Claire.
Right.
And that with you, it was a whole different story altogether. But it was the most wonderful time of my life. Watching you guys grow. You were like little miracles to me just because I never thought you would be here. And watching you grow and learning from you. I learned so much from each of you. And things that I just treasure, that so many little memories that I can't isolate them. It's just as a body.
Yeah.
They are the most important thing I have ever done in my life. And I can't even imagine life without having you in it, all of you.
We are grateful for
And
you were,
I just wanted
bringing us in.
I grew up in a rather strict household. My mother she didn't smile very much. And in fact, one day I'd moved out. I think I had a couple of kids at this time, and she lived in that old house. We had to go down to the base, to the lower level to get to the garage and the parking lot, whatever it was. And I went over. I had you guys, whoever was with me, I had you guys in the car. And I went over to give her a hug. And she actually pulled away from me because she never hugged us.
Yeah, that's so crazy.
I know.
It's such a different mindset of that era.
And she looked at me and she said, oh, I thought maybe you were going to hit me. So
what?
I know. And I had felt very close to all of you when you were all children and babies, and I'd really tried to take care of you. But at that moment, I made it my business to make sure that you all got hugs and that you all understood how much I loved and cherished each of you, and still do.
Yeah. You
are to quote a really awful old song, you are the sunshine of my life. And watching you, all of you, was just fascinating to me. The things that you would think about and the things that you would say.
Let's zoom in on some of that stuff.
Okay.
So, I wanted to start where we left off.
Okay, which
would be roughly around the Brookline years. So first, because you're on Selma, you're renting a house.
Mm-hmm.
I think we talked about that. Can you tell me a little bit about the process of like finding that house, buying that house? Do you remember anything about that?
I just, there was kind of a little bit of stress going on at that time. I don't remember exactly. I think the realtor that we were working with suggested it, and I kind of like looked at it and I thought, yeah, this is just the perfect little house. And it really was. It was in a nice little neighborhood. You guys could be outside, and I didn't have to worry about you. It was enough room for everybody without being crowded. We didn't have to jam everybody into 2 bedrooms or anything like that, which we did have to do in the hotel while we were waiting to get the house. And after living in that hotel, and after losing everything, or almost everything, it was very liberating in a way.
To lose everything? Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Brookline. So we moved in.
Mm-hmm.
I think I was pretty young. I was 5.
Was it as old as 5? I'm not even
I
sure.
don't. I honestly can't remember.
I think it was even a little younger than that.
So it's the only house I remember. I don't remember
Yeah.
Selma, and the girls were obviously older. So what do you recall, I guess, about those years?
Well, the
that you
first
want to
thing
share
was the relief
of finding the house.
finding a house.
Yeah.
And
I
and
get
then
that.
find out that it was kind of like the perfect little house in the perfect little neighborhood. Felt like we were living in an Ozzie and Harriet show for a while.
What about the neighborhood was?
It was a quiet neighborhood. There wasn't a whole lot of traffic. And you guys had a few friends there. There weren't too many kids in the neighborhood, but you had the opportunity to meet a few kids, and you all did stuff together. It was, I think it was about that time that your dad started showing some symptoms of the dementia.
Mm-hmm. Dementia or
Well, whatever it was to start with him.
depression?
Yeah, the depression. And I don't know
Here,
where it is.
Let's just
Okay.
let it go. Yeah.
So that made it harder because he was a little bit. He had to be propped up so much, and that became my job, and just kind of trying to keep him moving.
Even in those years?
Well, at the beginning of that part of the depression, it wasn't as bad, but as you know, eventually he had to quit his job. Because,
Yeah. Well, let's stick with those earlier years.
Okay.
So we kind of go in a sequence. So we were, young, roaming around the neighborhood, made some friends.
Mm-hmm.
Some things I remember was, I had a friend Jonathan,
Mm-hmm.
and then we would go to his house. I think when I was in like 1st or 2nd grade, I could just walk down to his house on my own, and
Right.
we could play. And we had a dogwood tree I would climb in the backyard. We had a dog at one point.
That's poor old Barkley.
Barkley, the dog. He was he a nice dog?
Your dad, for reasons I never understood, decided that we had to have a dog with a pedigree. That poor dog, he looked like a little dust mop. He was so hairy and so little. And he was just, I believe that dog had some kind of an illness or something. He was miserable all the time.
Huh.
And I just felt like he dragged through his life. And I felt so badly for him because he wouldn't accept being petted very well. He would nip at you guys sometimes. He was just a miserable little dog, and I don't know why. And I did, as I say, I felt badly for him. He did eventually get out. He just walked out and wandered out again in the street. as I recall, and got smacked.
Yeah, you got hit by a car.
Yeah, which I felt terrible about, but I didn't even realize he was gone. We probably didn't even realize he had gotten out of the house.
So those years there was the church,
Oh yeah, the whole.
Dad being an organist.
Yep, and you all sang in every choir in
Yep.
every church he ever played for,
Yeah.
and for Christmas Eve, and a lot of times just through the regular year, but certainly on Christmas Eve you all had to go and sing, and we would be out until 2:00 in the morning, and
I kind of forgot about that.
Yeah.
That was fun.
And
was that fun?
poor
I don't know.
poor old Santa Claus had to work triple time to get things done before you got up.
Yeah, right.
But I think overall, I think that we were, as a family, I think we were pretty happy, I think, but serene. I mean, we very rarely had anything huge going on
Yeah.
until I got sick the first time.
Yeah, those seem like pretty good years.
Yeah.
Right.
So those years were kind of magical. And that little neighborhood was kind of magical. It just was I knew that you could go out. I knew that you were fine. Oh, and I remember that little Amanda?
Oh, yeah.
And she walked in our house one day at 4:00 in the morning.
Oh, she did?
Yeah. And her parents mom had no idea where she was. And I think I took her back and said,
At 4 a.m?
yeah.
That's wild. How old was she? She would have been like,
Oh, 3?
oof, what?
Well, I think that household was so chaotic. And that poor child just got lost in the mix because
She had some issues.
I think I seem to think that she was an illegitimate child, and her grandmother was a very strict Catholic, and it just was a sad situation. So she was at our house all the time, and I didn't mind, and then at one point the grandmother came over with the mom and said, "Well, we think you're being mean to our kid, blah, blah, blah." I said, "Fine, keep her home."
Okay.
Easy solution. Don't look at me. You're the one who's got the kid. You're the one who can keep her in the house.
Okay, so what else?
With Amanda, remember we used to take her to preschool, to Montessori preschool?
No, I don't really remember
Yeah,
that.
she did the state. They didn't keep her in there very long, but
Okay.
because I was such an evil person.
I remember Claire, I'm just thinking of some stories that I remember hearing. Like, she did a play, put on a play with the neighborhood kids.
Oh yeah, she loved doing that stuff.
Yeah.
And she's a very good organizer.
Yep.
So she would get everybody in their places and then in their costumes, and boy, they better jolly well do what she said. And I don't think she's changed all that much. She's mellowed out. She really has. With her own children, she's so good with them.
Yeah.
And what else? There were so many. It's hard to remember because most of what happened there were just little things. Remember, we found, I can't remember if it was that house or a different one, where we had a raspberry patch close by, and we all went over and picked raspberries.
That was that one.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
picked raspberries. We had to walk along a rather busy street to do it, and I had to keep you all lined up and everything.
Yeah, I remember we're looking for cicada shells on the trees, and there'd be lightning bugs outside. This is what was exciting to me as a kid. We'd go out look for lightning bugs. Gosh, what else? We just had a lot of there was like block parties. That's how.
Oh yeah, when they would block off the whole neighborhood.
Yeah, and we'd connect with. That's where we probably met with some of the other kids. What else? Oh, Emily had an accident on her bike. I remember that.
Oh my God, yes, I do remember that. That was horrifying.
Yes.
She was out. She was what, 10, 11? I wasn't outside watching her on her bicycle. And
the road is a big hill down the street.
But I didn't realize she was. I think she'd been down it many, many times.
Probably,
I don't even remember because I wasn't outside. But suddenly, can't remember who came banging on the door.
It was me. I ran in.
Okay.
I saw it happen. Yeah.
And and she was bleeding everywhere,
Yeah,
and
it
she'd
was
knocked
rough.
out a couple of teeth, and it was it was the most horrifying experience because here's my child, my child, and I had neglected her. She's in pain, but she was quite a trooper through all of that, most of that.
Yeah.
And when they fixed her mouth, she was perfectly fine. I had nightmares about it for ages. I wonder if she did too.
Let's see, we do the walk on Wick.
Some kind of a charity, wasn't it?
I don't remember what the
Or
walk
just
on Wick was.
just a community activity, maybe
I think they just closed off the street and
Every-
it was like just kind of a fair.
a carnival. Kind
Yeah,
of
there
thing.
was
yeah.
like just a street fair.
And yeah, we did that how many times, and it was a lot of fun.
I remember that. Yeah, I would get excited for that. The Canfield Fair, we go to that.
Mm-hmm. And didn't your school band, play at the Canfield Fair several times?
Yeah, when I was older. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'd go every year and play. So then, okay, so Brookline years. Anything else you want to add? There was some
I just remember them as being kind of like the best years of your childhood, because it was so idyllic,
I agree with that.
and
Yep.
it was almost, it sounds silly to say, but it was almost like a fairy tale. Everything just fell into place. We had so little, you can move into a neighborhood and you can have a really difficult time.
Yeah.
You can have terrible things happen.
Or it can just be fine and you don't really like make connections.
Right,
That's kind of the
exactly.
way it is with our neighborhood.
Yeah.
There's no problems, but there's not that same, I don't know.
Camaraderie.
Yeah, exactly.
We knew our neighbors on Brookline, and that wasn't true of all the places we lived, but we knew them there.
Yeah.
And you each were young enough that it was good for you to have someone to play with. It was good for all of us parents to know that you were together, that you weren't likely to get into too much trouble, because there wasn't too much trouble to get into.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a wonderful time. I'm glad we all had that experience.
Yeah. I can only speak for myself, but I assume Emily and Claire would feel
I think they
similarly.
would probably mostly agree with
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
But Emily was the first one to go through her teenage years, obviously. And when she got to be, was it 15 or 16, the first time she went to summer camp as an aide, as an assistant. And for every summer for what, I think 4 years, we never saw her. She left
Yeah.
right after school. She came home just before school started. But she loved it. And there was no reason to say, no, you can't do that. And I think she learned a lot. And I think she had a good deal of fun.
Yeah. She loved it.
Yeah. But it felt odd to only have 2 children. And I didn't want to say, oh no, honey, you have to stay home for me, because that wasn't fair.
Right. Yeah.
And I think it did do her a lot of good. Watching each of you grow and mature and find yourselves was a wonderful experience. I can't think of anything in the world that would have made me happier than watching the 3 of you. And when I stop and think about it, I just can't believe how lucky I was. And how, 'cause I'd never really expected to have children. You all came as a big surprise to me. And a very, very, very welcome one. And I think we had a lot of fun together.
Yeah. Yeah, well, most of the time.
Yeah. Remember flying kites on some beach somewhere?
Flying kites on some beach in Rockport.
Oh, yeah, I guess it was in Rockport. Remember the trips to Rockport?
Me, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, we go every year. When did we start going? I think did we go during the Brookline years? I don't know that we did.
I think there was a time where we didn't go for a couple of years, and then we went back maybe one more time.
Yeah.
It got,
It was expensive.
yeah, your dad was very good at a lot of things, but he was certainly not very good at counting.
No, that is not a strength of his.
So I think there was a point when I just said, he actually made the last one reservation. No, that was to New York. He wanted to take us to New York. So why would we do that? So I said, no, we're not going. But he went ahead and went with his friend Tom, that guy from the professor,
Yeah.
the college professor. Was really annoyed with him, but I just had to say, we've got to stop this. So eventually he did decide, okay, yeah, we probably should stop spending all this money. And things got a lot easier after that.
So the Brookline years ended in a dramatic way.
A blaze of glory, if
Yeah.
you will. Which I have to say,
You ended up on the news.
oh my God, it was one of the most terrifying moments in my life, because all I could think of was, what if you guys were here? What if you guys were here? What if you guys were here? What would have happened?
So what did happen?
Well, no one ever quite worked it out, but we had been on, was it Christmas? It was after Christmas, about a week and a half after Christmas, I think. We'd gone to some place for Christmas vacation.
Oh, okay.
I don't remember where. Possibly Rockport, maybe? But we'd been gone for a few days, and by the time we got back, the Christmas tree was like crispy.
Yeah, it was.
It was
It
pretty
was
bad.
dry.
And I sent you off to school. You were going back to school, and I didn't have to go back that day because I didn't have an assignment that day. So I started like taking the tree apart and doing all the stuff you would do. And I was taking things out. Oh, and I had a bunch of dry cleaning I was taking out to the car. So I'm running back and forth in between the house and the car and trying to get everything together before you got home. And I honestly don't know what happened. I don't know what triggered that fire. They said it was probably, the fire guys said it was probably the socket close to where the Christmas tree was, that might have sparked just a little tiny bit. And the tree was so dry, it just took off like a torch. And I'm apparently that's what happened. But you stand there and you watch everything you own just go up in smoke, literally.
Didn't they say the cat chewed on the cord?
Probably, yeah, that was it.
Cat chewed on an electrical cord. This is their theory. And then sparks flew up.
Yeah.
And caught on the banister there was the garland. Is that what it is, garland? Yeah.
How odd it is to think about that now. But at the time, I was terrified for all those months when we moved into the hotel, and I just felt like I couldn't give you kids enough. I couldn't give you normal.
It was a weird time. I mean, we kind of enjoyed it. Aspects of it, roaming around the halls and just being in a nuisance.
Being up on the roof one day.
That wasn't me. To be clear, that was your daughters.
Yeah.
Your misbehaving daughters. But yes, they made their way on the roof, and they were caught.
Yes.
And the staff did not like that.
Well, no, why would they? And your dad and I were in the dining room, and somebody came down and said, "Are you aware that your children are on the roof?"
Listen, I get it. There's not a lot to do. But let's see, what else? What are some highlights? Yeah, I made friends with one of the front desk ladies. I would just hang out in the elevator sometimes and just push buttons for people.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, so the setup was, it was 2 hotel rooms.
Mm-hmm.
It was me and you. I was at 3rd grade. It was me and the 2 of you. So you were in one bed, queen bed. This is just a big hotel room.
Mm-hmm.
And then Emily and Claire were in the other room. And that was it. And there was a shared door between the rooms.
Yes.
And that was our lives.
And at the beginning it seemed like,
for
wow,
like months.
yeah, what an adventure this is. And about after a week and a half, it was
Yeah.
like, all right, I'm done with this one. Can we move on?
Yeah, because we didn't have a kitchen.
I know.
You know, we didn't have. I assume we just ate out every night, and I also assume insurance paid for a lot of
The
that.
insurance paid, luckily, the insurance paid for that. And obviously did a good job of
We said like
making sure we had enough money to.
pizza all the time, and
Yeah.
there was the hotel itself was quite interesting, right? Because it was the Wick Pollock Inn.
Right.
So it's this old mansion, right, that they converted into a hotel. It's beautiful. And they had a restaurant there that was pretty fancy. What else?
And you caught the school bus?
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think the school bus picked you up there.
For Lowellville?
Oh no, we must have been still carpooling with that other.
Yeah, I think we were definitely
yeah.
not a school bus. It was carpooling.
So they had to pick you up and take you back, and then I had to go pick up their kid,
Right.
whom no one liked, as I recall.
Yeah, I didn't like him.
And I don't
He
know
was a
how
strange
I
kid.
don't know how we got involved with them. I really can't remember, but it was kind of a relief to not have to drive back and forth every single day.
Well, I get it. McKibbin's,
We wanted you in that school as opposed to the city schools. I know.
Lowellville.
Yeah.
Yeah, so at that time we were at a Montessori. We were in the Lowellville Public Schools, which is a very small town, right?
Yeah.
A population of 1,000.
Something like that.
But, pretty good school.
I thought it was good.
You wanted us to be there, right? So they had open enrollment, but it was a long drive, right?
Yeah. But it was worth it. It really was worth it. And I remember that the girls had to be in their classrooms first. So we all got in the car in the morning, and I dropped the girls off. And I think that David, if we were driving him, he went in early too, because you were still in kindergarten or first grade, and they were in the upper classes. So we would drive around Lowellville. We would drive through the cemetery.
Yeah, right.
And it was a wonderful time, because one of the things that I still remember and I will absolutely never forget is one day we were just driving around, and we had like 20 minutes to kill, I think. And it started to rain, and then there was a little rainbow, and you started singing "Somewhere Under the Rainbow." And it was just, you're a parent now, so you know that there are things that your child does that just clutch at your heart, and you just go, oh my gosh. And that was one of those moments. It was just something so you and so beautiful.
Yeah, I could see Matilda doing something like that.
Yeah.
For sure.
I think that from the moment I held Emily, all through all of your childhoods, you three are the absolute pinnacle of my life. I can pat myself a little bit on the shoulder and say, I think I did a pretty good job. And I loved watching you grow up, and I loved just everything about it. I can't imagine what my life had been without you.
Yeah, I think you guys deserve a pat on the back.
Well, it was hardly like it was work.
Really?
Well, there were those moments.
I can't. I know that might be a mischaracterization. We just have one, and
Well, it's
Matilda's
always
great,
seemed
but it
to
is
me
work
that
sometimes.
having a perfectly vacuumed house and a shiny clean floor was far less important than having happy kids.
Yeah, you got to accept some chaos for sure.
Absolutely. And besides that, I was relatively indifferent to the whole idea of housekeeping. I mean, not that we lived in it wasn't like we lived filthy or anything. I took care of stuff, but I really didn't care. And I cooked every single day. And I'm so glad not to be doing that anymore. And
Yeah.
I got to the point where I was sort of tired of that.
Yeah, Dad had more of a traditional mindset, right?
Oh, yes, you did. And then he wanted to take, those big vacations that we took, which were fun, but we should have not taken so many.
Yeah. Well, we like it. So. We weren't the ones paying the bill though.
Yeah.
So, okay, so let's see. Now, okay, so we moved into a different house, right?
The one on Selma.
Gypsy.
That was a pretty cool house, as I recall.
What do you remember about that house?
Well, first of all, I can't remember why we bought it because it was an insane buy. But it was a beautiful old house.
I assume Dad really wanted it.
Yeah.
'Cause it's,
And it turned out, we found out, that it had been a house that was owned by a mafia boss.
yeah,
Or I don't know if it was a boss, but it's part of the
it
mafia.
was built by them, right?
Yes.
For them.
And there was a room in the basement that nobody could get into,
Right.
which I began to think of as and call the Jimmy Hoffa suite.
Yeah.
But it was a lovely house. And I think it was the kind of house where all your friends could come over and we could, there was enough room for everybody. And I enjoyed that house a lot. But it was also the time when your dad's health had been failing for some time and he was having issues.
Well, failing in what sense?
Well, truth is that he was perfectly content to sit, and after a while he just couldn't quite get up and move around anymore is really what happened.
Yeah, well, this was more like later,
Yeah.
right? I'm talking more when we first moved in. Like there's...
I seem to remember, that's my problem, I don't remember much. Wasn't that the house where we had those weirdo neighbors?
No, that was Selma.
Okay. Well then, I guess that house was fine. I guess it was a beautiful house.
Yeah.
And, I remember painting a mural on the hallway and down the hall.
Yep.
And I
Yeah, you
remember-
painted some of the walls.
Yeah.
In one of the bathrooms you did the wallpaper with the playbills.
Yeah. So it was kind of a weird house, but I liked it.
So, yeah, this house was very... What's the word? It's very, like, stone walls. It was large. It had awnings. It was fairly grand, right?
Wow, yeah, it was. It was built by the mafia.
But it was pretty, it was like kind of an Italian sort of...
Absolutely.
There was fountains. It had a small balcony.
Yeah. It was
Multiple fireplaces.
a definite Italian.
But this
villa.
house was built in like 1910. It was very inexpensive, I remember, for the size. And I think part of the reason for that is the furnace was also from 1910. There was one guy in the state who could work on it.
I think we eventually replaced it, but
I don't think, no, we did not.
maybe not. Maybe we didn't.
No, that thing was huge.
But the
It was so...
the utilities were a little high on that house.
Yeah.
You couldn't heat it. You couldn't cool it down.
Right. That was the problem with that house. But otherwise, quite nice.
Mm-hmm. It really was a beautiful house.
What was I going to say? I guess, yeah, those years, but the neighborhood itself was not, it wasn't bad, but it didn't
was
have...
declining.
Yeah, I guess you could say
Yeah.
that. It was declining. There wasn't, we didn't know our neighbors that well. There weren't kids to play with. So for me, those years were like definitely more isolating.
Right.
Because, well, the house was nice. Oh, and the other thing is we were so far away from Lowellville that the friends who we had made in Lowellville were 20, 30 minutes away.
And their parents didn't want them coming into Youngstown because they thought, they were going to get
right.
run over by mobsters or something.
Yeah, yeah.
So the house itself was great, but the time in that house was a mixed blessing.
Yeah, I think there was more tension then.
Yeah. And just...
And you were sick then.
Oh, yeah.
So, talk about that a little bit. What was your first... You had a few sicknesses.
Oh, God. I can't even remember.
I think I can help.
Yeah, tell me which was first.
I believe it was the heart failure.
Yes.
Was first.
Yes.
And so what I remember is you were in the doctor's office and you were like, my heart hurts. I just need, I don't know. I assume that's why you were there. And then they're like, "Oh, you have congestive heart failure. We're taking you to the hospital right now."
But the weird part of that story was
Or you collapsed or something in
Your-
the office.
your dad had gone to that doctor for years, and that doctor prescribed everything for your dad. He did x-rays and all that stuff, and I saw him 4 times. And I kept saying, I can't breathe. And I've gained all of this weight, because I gained a ton of weight. And he almost literally patted me on the head and said, well, you know, women your age go through this, you know, you gain weight and blah, blah, blah. And
You're talking about like menopause?
yeah. And I was really annoyed that he didn't do anything. But your dad kept saying, oh, he's such a good doctor. He's such a good doctor. I said, fine. And I went back to him for the very last time. And he said, well, just go get an x-ray.
An
It's like,
x-ray?
yeah, chest x-ray. And, you know, get out of my, I'm going to have you do this, so you just go away and shut up. Leave me alone.
Yeah.
It's okay. So I did. And your dad was, one of the nights your dad had choir practice or something, and he didn't get home till really later, much later than usual, actually. And the doctor, in the meantime, had called me and said, you have to get to the hospital now. Now. And I've got 3 kids, and I can't drive myself to the hospital, and I have to wait until your dad got home. And I was actually in congestive heart failure by the time I got there.
One second. I gotta start this again. Okay, there you go. You're in congestive heart failure by the time you got there?
Right. And nobody actually took me seriously until the day that I went into the hospital and they said, oh my God, you've got congestive heart failure, get to the
So what does
hospital.
that mean?
It means that my heart was malfunctioning and my lungs were filling with liquid, with fluids, because my heart wasn't clearing all
Did
of
they
that.
understand why that happened? Is it a genetic thing, or?
It turns out that one of my valves, for no particular reason, was just very seriously damaged, and probably had been for a long time. But why? I don't think anybody ever figured it out. And I nearly died that day.
So you were what, like you're in your 50s?
I was younger than that. I think you kids were younger than that.
Okay.
But you know, as I think about it, because I had you
Like
at
late
such
40s.
a late age, it could have been very close, maybe 45 or
Yeah,
something.
later 40s.
Um,
So what do they do? What are they taking the hospital? Did you get a
I
surgery
went into
then?
the hospital and they said, oh, you've got this. And I think that was when they put the pacemaker in. And then sometime after that, I was feeling really bad again and I was achy, and I went to the doctor, and that was when they diagnosed the cancer.
Oh.
Yeah. It was fairly close together.
Really?
Yes, I don't know. I mean, that I got to tell you, the whole thing is a blur, because there were these two near fatal illnesses, and all I could think of was, oh my God, who's going to take care of my kids? And I've got to get myself out of the bed, and I've got to get myself going. And I worked as hard as I could to get myself back on my feet. And I kind of stumbled around for about 6 more months before I really started to feel like a human being again.
Well, because you had a surgery, right, to replace a valve?
Oh yeah. And then the chemo was just brutal.
So you had...
I think those things would happen within something like 18 months of each other.
Okay. Right. So you had a serious form of cancer, right?
Yeah.
What was it?
It was non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And although I have to say that actually, bald was my favorite haircut.
Yeah, ever since you've had short hair.
Yeah.
And it works well for you.
My hair's too long. I have to get it cut now. But, and I remember going out to dinner we went out with my mom, and I don't remember where we went, but she was, and I took my hat off because we were inside, and she was kind of like, oh, you know, she was a little squeamish about it. You know, what the hell? I don't care. I had cancer. If I wanted to take my hat off, by God, I'm going to take my hat off.
I'd say you earned that right. Yeah.
My mom was a little odd sometimes. She grew up in a family of too many kids with a grandmother who her mother had serious depression problems and all that sort of stuff. So the kids kind of just, I don't know how they got themselves raised, but they did.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was a tough time
Oh yeah, you could say that.
for you, especially. I don't know, anything else you want to share about that time?
The one thing, I'm not a big prayer, but I have an ongoing conversation with God and have for years. And it's not a daily thing, maybe not even a weekly thing, but once in a while I'll say, think, "Hi, things are going pretty well, thank you." Or, this happened, what am I supposed to do now? Show me what I need to do. And that was my whole conversation through the whole series of illnesses. Just, I really want to see I want to see my son graduate from high school. That is the only thing I'm asking of you. Because you were so young. And I just was I didn't want to leave you. I didn't want to leave any of you. And this is awful, but the truth is I didn't want to leave you in the care of your dad, because he was kind of always just a little busy and a little distracted, and I just thought it wouldn't be good. So every day that I thought about it, it was just, all right, tell me what I'm supposed to be doing, and I'll do it. Let's see what happens, and please let me know that if I die now, that someone will take care of my children. And I got to be this old, and I got to see you and your sisters grow up, and I got to see grandchildren.
Yeah.
A gift that I never thought I would find. And it's the most wonderful feeling. And I think we have a strong family. I think that, I'm not saying we don't have our moments. I'm sure we do. And each of you is so completely different that there's no way that you're all in harmony at the same time. But you all do get along.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you've had your battle. Well, I know when you were younger, you certainly had some battles. But I think for the most part, we are so lucky that our family has been mostly peaceful. We're always willing to help each other when we can. We've always been there when somebody needed something. And if that's what family's all about, and I think we did a pretty good job.
Yeah. There's been no major rifts or anything. It's just normal. Yeah. We've been lucky. Yeah. There's, no one's had major health issues. Well, I mean, amongst the kids. No one's had addiction problems. So
there are so many things.
Yeah, there's so many possibilities of bad things, and we've so far, knock on wood, we've been lucky.
I did watch over you guys carefully, but you were I was in one school system, and you were one far away from me, and we had to travel back and forth to get you there. And I just thought, I know you guys are serious people. I know you will be fine, but there are those moments when you just go, oh, what if my kid does this? What if this happens?
Yeah, I can.
And we were quite lucky. Nothing really horrible happened.
Right. Yeah. You want to give your kids the freedom to make mistakes and learn from them, but
and you have to do that.
Some mistakes you definitely don't want them to make. So
it's so hard. It's so hard to say to yourself, you have to. You can't manage everything. Sometimes you have to back off.
Yeah.
And the older they get, the worse it gets, until all of a sudden they grow up into be real human, adults, and you go, oh, okay.
Okay, I figured it out, I guess.
I can let go now.
Yeah.
I'm all right. They're all right.
Okay, so let's see. So you had his heart surgery, replaced valves, chemotherapy. You're in remission.
Mm-hmm. And I
Do you
think
remember that? Getting that news?
I remember hearing the words, and I remember thinking, okay, but people can have a relapse with cancer. You never know.
You never did, though, right?
Not really, no. There was one time that I was feeling kind of bad, and I went in for some x-rays and stuff, and it wasn't the cancer, it was just some other thing.
Right.
Um,
Is that unusual to go that long without a relapse?
I think at this point they would declare me totally cancer-free.
Yeah, right.
I think it was like 20 years or something at the time. I don't know. Things have changed a lot. The medications have changed a lot. So I think they do better than they used to. They're able to do more for cancer than they used to. But of course, that was always in my back of my mind, what would happen if I had to do that again. And I remember driving down to OSU to see Emily, one of the few times I was able to go. And I was just getting out of some kind of treatment. I can't remember what it was, which one it was. It might have been cancer treatment, but I wouldn't swear to it. Oh, it must have been because I was bald. Or it was far. I hadn't gotten far enough away that I'd started to grow hair again. And I remember driving there thinking, oh my God, I'm never going to make this trip. It's too much for me. What am I going to do? And then she took one look at me because she hadn't seen me. And she was definitely not prepared for what she saw.
Yeah.
So that was kind of, it was a horrible thing for her. And I tried to prepare her, but what are you going to say?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I'm a mess. Get ready.
I looked like a bald ghost. And I think at that point I hadn't started putting my weight back on, so I started looking like a bald ghost who was a skeleton or something.
Okay, well, let's talk about some not so sad things. Some things I remember from the house, the holidays.
Okay.
Thanksgiving was always a fun time at our house.
Oh my God, yes.
What do you
What do
remember
you
about
remember most about the Thanksgiving dinners?
that? Well, it kind of changes by age.
Yeah,
when I
of
was really young, it became eventually my favorite holiday. I don't know if when I was very young it was. The things I remember the most were the big dinners, obviously. We had a lot of family come over. Pumpkin pie. I was very excited about the pumpkin pie. And then when I got older, being able to see the cousins, because we didn't really see them that much.
I know.
Even though they lived close by. So like Lex and I was always the youngest, so it was a little stressful for me too, because I was, like,
Always
hey
the
guys,
youngest.
pay attention to me. So it was, in a way I was kind of anxious about it, but it was really nice to have everybody over. As we got older, a tradition I really liked was we'd go over to Lex's and Alyssa's house, and we'd have a movie night. We'd spend the night.
Yeah.
And that was like amazing. That was my favorite part, I think, when I was a kid. Let's see. And then as we got older, we had a more diverse crowd come in and join for dinner. Just people weren't necessarily family; they were like friends of family or just friends would come.
It exploded in ways I never expected.
It's massive.
I think one year we had 40 people.
Yep.
For dinner, and we had to put them out in that extra room, and we had tables everywhere.
Yeah.
And
there's
and how many people slept over that night? I can't remember.
A lot. There's a lot of musicians in the family or amongst the group. So we had a guitarist, a couple guitarists, violinists, pianists, and they would jam together.
Oh yeah, it was wonderful.
I don't know if that doesn't happen every year, or if it wasn't that, it would be Dad playing the piano and everybody singing show tunes. So music was a big part of those memories that I remember fondly. I don't know. What about you? Besides from cooking,
I enjoyed having a house full of people.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that we had enough room that people could stay for a few days.
Yeah, we had a great house for entertaining
and
like
and
that.
it was, I loved all of that stuff. I never thought about it when I was doing it. But after I stopped a couple of years later, I just always thought, how in God's name did I ever do this? It is massive work.
Yeah.
But
And it was just you, right? You were the only cook?
Yeah, pretty much the only cook. And sometimes people would bring stuff, but not very often, and because, they just knew I'd have everything all set. And
Susan's got it.
It's fine. And
she loves it.
yeah, she loves it. And I did for a long time. And then when I stopped, a couple of years later, I thought back about it, and I thought,
We had a whole system by then, right? Like
more or less, yeah.
turkey goes in this time.
Yeah. Well, the problem with systems is that they never quite time out the way you think they're going to.
Yeah, right.
And where we were going to put people in the house and how many people were sleeping over, we didn't always know. And then for a while we were going over to Lanny's on the next day for another dinner and whatever, as you say, the movies. So it got to be it was probably the biggest holiday for our family.
Yeah.
Christmas morning was pretty good generally, I hope. But to get to Christmas morning, your dad had to go to that midnight service, and he, what a horrible driver he was.
Yeah.
And he's driving home at 2:00 in the morning, and I'm thinking, oh my God, he'll never make it home. He scared the hell out of me more often than not. I was so relieved when he finally decided he ought not to drive anymore.
Oh, how he was such a bad driver.
Because he never paid any attention.
It's a good thing cell phones weren't around.
Oh, my Lord. Oh. Well, he never learned how to use his cell phone.
Right.
So that wouldn't have been a problem.
Well, you didn't need to he didn't need to text and drive to be distracted.
He just kind of assumed that, all right, I'm on this road. People are going to get out of my way. I can't tell you how many times that man was in traffic court. And the last time he was there was just before he stopped driving, by the way. And just as he was getting ready, he resigned from his job, too, a little earlier than I expected. But the judge just, I had to go. There was no choice. I had to be there. His lawyer said I had to be there.
Right.
And it happened to be this shady lawyer, and he knew my dad, of course. And we walked into court, and the officer who had given your dad this last ticket gave him a look from across the room that made my blood, it just sent a chill, because he was really furious. And I thought, oh God, this is the time he'll end up in jail.
Oh, man.
And then he'll lose his job. And then, the whole cascade was going through my head. And the lawyer that he had, the one that knew my dad, they had a little conference. And so I think my dad did a little bit to help on that one, but then that was it. I told him.
Your dad was still alive then?
Yeah, that was a while ago, I think. Or maybe he had to have said something. But that was then when your dad changed jobs and he wasn't driving forever to get back and forth to work.
Right.
And then retired not long after that, which was good. Probably saved us thousands of dollars in our house. So I was very happy he retired.
Yeah. So Dad is, he's in a different retirement home. He has pretty severe memory issues right now. So we're not going to be able to speak to him, unfortunately.
Maybe you could try.
Maybe. But yeah. I mean, we're not going to get the same level of detail.
No.
So a viewer of this might come away with a negative impression of him. So I just want to add some more positive memories too of him. So what I remember about Dad is, growing up, very musical.
Oh, yeah.
And really wanted to, he was a choir director, organist for a church. So he went every Sunday, and there were many churches he would play at throughout the years, because you get hired at one church and you get hired at another somewhere far away, and he was very good at it, and he loved. I think it's the thing he loved doing the most. And then he had us take piano lessons. He wanted to instill that in us, and have us take choir. And I for one, I think that has very positive impact on me. My appreciation of music, and my ability to to play instruments today. So he instilled that. He was a funny guy when he wanted to be.
When he wanted to be,
when he wanted to be, he was quite funny. He liked things his own way, but he wasn't at least from I would say the perspective of the kids, he wasn't overly forceful in wanting us to do certain things or be a certain way. He was kind of like what you said in raising us, willing to let us find our own way and make mistakes. I guess the other side of that coin is there was less direction there, which made things challenging.
Well, I tried to be a guide.
Yeah, and so what else? He wanted you say you want to make things fun, and that was the way he wanted to make things fun was through these trips. He was very eager to go on vacation
Elaborate
with us.
vacations.
And that was kind of his way of. He enjoyed them, but I think giving us a fun experience was important to him.
It was once or twice would have been fine.
Yeah, I get it. I'm just trying to.
No,
I'm just trying to convey some positive memories.
Do you remember
too.
How difficult when he would go into depression?
I do. Yeah. It was challenging.
It was it's hard on all of us, but I tried to hold things together and make everything feel like it was normal.
Yeah, I mean that was your burden. That was the challenge for sure.
But I think I probably shielded you, at least I hope I did, from being afraid
of his mental state.
Or not what he would do, but I was always concerned, how long will this last, and what happens if it's always a money issue too, because because of where he worked, he was able to collect sick pay.
Right.
But at one point, he had just reached the end of it.
Right.
And then that would have been kind of a disaster. So, I think...
Sorry, one second. I have to get this started again. We're going to have to stop soon. We're going to have battery limitations. But yeah, I mean, eventually, he was able to keep his mental health stable enough to where he could, maintain a job. And But that eventually did kind of come crashing down.
Yeah.
I think by the time I graduated high school. So, but again, I'm trying to convey some positive things too, because there's good and bad.
Absolutely, there's always good and bad.
And he, let's see, I don't know. He was one thing that I always appreciated was I had a Little League baseball that I really loved doing, even though I was terrible at it. But I really liked it. And you guys would always come to my games. And I'm sure it was it's a long drive. It's a lot, the girls have their own activities. But from what I remember, there was never a time where I was wondering where you guys were and feeling sad about it. You guys were there to support me. And that I appreciated. And that kind of involvement in a child's life is not something that every kid has. So, despite his flaws, he did show up, and then eventually he just couldn't overcome his inner.
Yeah, and he stayed fairly functional for longer than I thought.
Yeah.
Because I spent a lot of time being concerned about how I would manage if he couldn't carry through, because a full-time job and 3 kids and a house that I wouldn't have been able to afford by then, and all this other stuff weighed pretty heavily on me for a long time.
Yeah.
But it all worked out, and everybody's okay, and I'm so grateful for all of
Kept
that.
it together for as
Yeah.
as long as he needed to, and then he was done.
Yeah. And the last time we went to visit, Claire and I, we took the kids, I'm not entirely sure that he seemed to recognize us. And once in a while I think he called Claire by name. But he was very vague.
Yeah. You can't maintain
Yeah.
a topic, or
And
he can't really finish a sentence. He can start a sentence and you'll say like, okay, he's going somewhere.
mm-hmm.
Like, oh, I remember that. That's and then it's
Yeah,
gone.
yeah.
He loses the thread almost immediately.
So we went, that time we were in the common room, and the kids were playing kickball or something. I mean, you know, we were way on one side of the room. Everybody else was on the others, because I don't like to disturb people. Old people get cranky sometimes.
Right.
But eventually a couple of people came over in their wheelchairs, and we were watching the kids, and they were having a great time.
Do you guys go to the common room outside of the memory ward?
We have, yeah, sometimes.
Okay. Okay, we might do that next time, because it's kind of...
It's so depressing in there.
And it's really smelly in there.
And I feel, but I think...
I just feel bad. It's just the
I
only
feel
option for him, really.
bad, but I think that he is comfortable.
Given his abilities and his needs, there's just really no other option.
I know.
And like, you're fortunate in that this is an option for you, and you don't have the same...
I don't know what I was going to
limitations.
do. I really was very worried about it, and I was worried about both of us, because when he would fall and I'd try to get him up, I was afraid I was going to hurt my back. And
Well, yeah.
when the hospital people said we're setting this up, I thought, oh, I'm sorry that had to happen, but I'm so grateful, because I can't do this.
Yeah, and the way Medicaid functions, and the way those finances have to work,
Yeah.
there's just no alternative for him, because
Right.
they make a claim to his income, and that's the care he gets. And the staff is nice, and they're helpful, and like, I think it serves his needs.
And a lot of them seem to like him. He's a much nicer person there. Apparently he doesn't get angry the way he used to, and that sort of thing, which is good, because you don't want to bite the head and it feeds you.
Right. Yeah, he's kind of accepted. It was challenging for him to accept being away, in any facility.
Oh, I know.
He's accepted
But I
it.
think this has worked out, and I'm very glad to know that he's comfortable.
Yeah.
And he doesn't seem to be angry anymore, and I'm very glad for that.
Yeah, he seems fine every time we're there. He did. I don't know. He was kind of an antagonist. His.
Yes.
He likes to stir the pot, we'll
Mm-hmm.
say, and like make comments to people to kind of like, to do that. So he was kind of doing that with one of the other guys, and we're in the memory ward. So this woman has like it's clearly like an advanced Alzheimer's, and he's just like antagonizing her a little bit, which was like, it just brought me back to
Yes.
this.
Did the poor woman actually realize that?
No.
Okay, good.
No, not at all. But yeah, no, that's... Yeah, there's like elements of that kind of attitude he has that I kind of remember a bit, but not...
He could be a little bit mean now and then.
He can be a little bit mean, but like, it's also kind of his humor too. He's just like very snarky.
Sometimes it was hard to tell the difference.
Yeah, so I mean, it's just kind of the way he was. Anyway, so I think that maybe that's a good place to stop.
Okay.
Unless there's anything else you want to...
I don't think of anything right this minute. I think that was a lot.
Okay. All right, so let me make some notes here where we stopped. So next session...
We should talk about the vacation.
Okay. Okay, so we can talk about vacation. And then how about us leaving the house, like those kind of years, vacations.
Okay. Yeah.
So we'll pivot to vacations, and then the post-kid years.